What is your name? My name is N. Sabanu.
Now that the first season of X-Men 97 has come to an end, we can finally look back and appreciate what a wonderful experience the show has been. Everything from the storylines, characters, dialogues, and the animation quality was top-notch. And the season finale has ended exactly how we expected, preserving the legacy of X-Men the animated series and setting the stage for an intense second season. In this video, we will take you through everything that happens in the final episode of the series, and also explore the various implications of the eventful ending. There will be some major spoilers along the way, so you have been warned. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. How does Tolerance is Extinction Part 3 take over from the cliffhanger in the previous episode? The episode begins with a conversation between a young Professor Xavier and Magneto, and clearly the psychic professor is trying to breach the mind of his old friend, Magnus, in the real world. The conversation turns out to be one of their earliest interactions, where Xavier talks about his ideals of human-mutant coexistence, and Magneto seems to be dismissive about his utopia of peace. However, by the end of this conversation, they both reveal each other's mutant abilities. Suddenly, Rogue calls out to Magneto and he realizes that Charles is now playing mind games with him. Professor Xavier states that he is forced to violate Magneto's mind because he declared war on humanity and turned the X-Men against each other. He is also pretty furious about what Magneto did to Wolverine, and Magneto admits that he had no choice as Wolverine had murderous intent while attacking him. Once again, Professor X tries to appeal to Magneto's consciousness and asks him to restore the damage done. When Magneto refuses, Professor X threatens to hijack his mind and force him to restore power in the blacked out world. Magneto warns him about the consequences of such psychic penetration, which can leave both of them with shattered memories. But Xavier is adamant about his decision. The entire sequence between Magneto and Professor Xavier has been portrayed perfectly. In a cold world clouded by Magneto's hate and pain, he has suffered from a horrible childhood, watched his loved ones die for trusting human goodness, and now he's too far gone to come to the peace table. Xavier launches a severe psychic attack and pins down Magneto as the other X-Men watch in horror. What happens to the Prime Sentinels when Magneto's attack is reversed? Professor Xavier finally has to take the worst step, even though it isn't for the lack of trying. He just realized that Magneto can no longer be reasoned with, and after taking over his mind forcibly, Xavier forces another powerful electromagnetic pulse that reverses the effects of Magneto's earlier attack. Power is restored across the world, and we have a brief sequence where superheroes like the Silver Samurai and even the Avengers look on as the restoration process takes place. However, this also means that the Prime Sentinels are active once again, and the scene cuts away to Bastion, who boasts about the inevitability of his vision. He claims that even Professor Xavier's actions ultimately shape the path to Bastion's goals, and all the immobile and frozen Prime Sentinels are now back to life. It is a relief to see that Storm and Forge, who had been attacked and knocked out in the previous episode, are alive and well, even though they're held captive along with Beast and Morph. Jean Grey is still missing from the scene, and Cable continues to be under the influence of Mr. Sinister's mind control. Beast and Storm try to reason with Bastion, who even cracks a cruel joke on the futility of appealing to his humanity. This episode truly exposes his sentinel nature, and we get to see just how powerful Bastion really is. Bastion exclaims that in order to protect humanity, he has to protect humanity from itself. Prime Sentinels can be seen fighting popular Marvel superheroes everywhere, and Bastion ridicules Cable about his failed attempts to change the fate of his mother. It turns out that Cable has attempted to stop Bastion as many as 200 times, and each time, he has failed. Bastion is ready to use his Prime Sentinels to obliterate Cable to set an example, but Mr. Sinister isn't too pleased with such actions because he was promised that Cable would be his prize to keep. It becomes clear that Bastion doesn't want to risk leaving Cable alive because he will keep trying to go back in time to ruin his plans of Operation Zero Tolerance. However, things are far from over for Cable, and we have a surprise appearance of Jean Grey to save the day. How does Jean Grey turn into the Phoenix to give the X-Men the upper hand? Just when it seemed to be curtains for Cable, Jean Grey appears in her Phoenix avatar. We have seen how the Phoenix Force takes over when her life is seriously threatened, and the attack by a mind-controlled Cable in the previous episode seems to have ticked off her Phoenix takeover. While many were quick to assume that she is dead, we were quite sure of her comeback as the Phoenix in our previous speculative video. That is exactly what happens, and we see how powerful the Phoenix Force can be. Even Bastion is tossed around like he's powerless, and the Phoenix also restores the Prime Sentinels back to their human form. The captive X-Men members are released, and even Mr. Sinister is not spared. The Phoenix Force takes away all his mutant DNA that kept him young and powerful all these years, and just like the Phoenix burns away the obsolete, Mr. Sinister is transformed into his original self. There's even a bit of a comic relief as Morph transforms into Sinister's hideous and old self to give him the reality check that his powers are gone. Cable is no longer under his mind control, and Jean Grey is back to her old self, stating that the Phoenix Force took over because of her strong desire to save her son's life. We wonder why the Phoenix Force did not stay longer, because Bastion strikes back almost instantly. Some more time as the Phoenix and Jean Grey could have solved all the problems that threatened the X-Men and the Earth. Regardless, Bastion now moves to the next stage of his plans now that his Sentinels are not functional anymore. He rips out Cable's bionic arm and thrashes him with it, and he reveals his final plan. Bastion wants to crash Asteroid M on Earth, and the fate of the humans will be the same as that of the mutants, as the world faces certain extinction upon impact with such a gigantic piece of rock.
Magnus, are you all right?
Will Professor Xavier and Magneto regain control over their minds? Magneto had already warned Professor Xavier that such psychic intervention could cause them both to lose their minds. But the Professor had no other option to rein in a defiant Magneto. Now that the world power has been restored and the Sentinel threat has been dealt with, one major concern still surrounds the X-Men. Professor Xavier and Magneto are both unconscious, and in the psychic domain, Xavier is struggling to keep up with Magneto, who has lost all his memories. He doesn't remember who he is, and he's even confused about where they are, just like what happens to Magneto in the comic books after he rips out Wolverine's adamantium. For now, Magneto has no control over the thoughts and memories, and Professor Xavier is running out of time in an effort to fix his condition.
No! Magnus! For the love of God, don't do this!
What happens to Wolverine after Magneto's vicious attack? The previous episode delved into one of the most brutal attacks in X-Men history, when Magneto ripped the adamantium out of Wolverine's skeleton after he impaled Magneto with his claws. Now, Logan is knocked out, and as Cyclops, Sunspot, and Jubilee tend to an unconscious Magneto and Professor Xavier, we also see Logan in the background. Jubilee states that Wolverine's pulses are steady, and his incredible healing powers are the only thing that's keeping him alive. Cyclops urges an unconscious Wolverine to heal and not give up, when suddenly, he receives a telepathic message from Jean Grey. She tells him about Bastion's attack on Cable, and we see Storm tending to Cable's injuries now that his arm has been ripped off. There's even a hilarious little moment when Morph turns into Jean Grey briefly to tell Wolverine to heal quickly because she loves him. The brief scene with Wolverine is enough indication that he is not going to die, and expect to see a lot more of his kick-ass action sequences in the upcoming season. He will, in all likelihood, function with his bone claws now that his adamantium is gone, and we have to wait to find out how his adamantium is restored in the series. Is Bastion really unstoppable and the future incarnate? Meanwhile, Professor Xavier connects with both Cyclops and Jean Grey and tells them about his psychic attack that shattered Magneto's psyche entirely. He tells them that he has to restore Magneto's mind quickly because otherwise the pain and sense of loss would consume him. If Professor Xavier fails to do it in time, both their minds will be lost forever. Jean Grey tells Cyclops about Bastion's plan to bring Asteroid M down to Earth, and Forge and Beast can be seen working on a way to get them back up there. But what are the chances for Cyclops, Rogue, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, and Sunspot to stop him when the likes of Jean Grey and Storm failed to do so? We find out shortly as Bastion arrives and Rogue takes him by surprise and launches a ferocious attack as revenge for her fallen lover, Gambit. Bastion takes quite a beating before he can fight back, but no amount of hits seems to immobilize him permanently. Soon, he gets the better of Rogue and almost struggles the life out of her before Sunspot intervenes. As pointed out earlier earlier, if Bastion succeeds, he will blow up the gravity core and it will be the end for humanity. Nightcrawler and Jubilee also try their luck against Bastion, but he's simply too strong to be taken down. We even get a spirited attack from Cyclops, who is furious about Bastion's attack on his family. It looks like Bastion is knocked out, but only momentarily, before his futuristic weapon shoots back at Cyclops. Jubilee even rips out the outer layers of skin on Bastion's face, but he is unbothered, and it's only one of his giant Prime Sentinels that ends up stopping him. It turns out to be Storm, Jean Grey, Beast, and Morph piloting the Sentinel. Bastion is back up again, and it almost seems like he is indeed the future incarnate, an unstoppable force of fate. Back on Earth, President Kelly is pressured by various individuals to take a decisive action because the asteroid above is like a gun pointed towards humanity. Avengers like Captain America try to persuade the president against activating the Magneto protocol because very little is known about the nature of Asteroid M. Finally, it is activated, and a number of missiles head out toward the asteroid. Suddenly, in the middle of their confrontation with Bastion, the X-Men are alerted by a number of missiles flying towards them. The Magneto protocol has been activated, and large explosions throw everything in flames. Sunspot rescues a falling Jubilee, and the X-Men make a last-ditch effort to stop a crashing Asteroid M from destroying Earth. As for Bastion, he's given a chance at redemption, but he's far too gone, and he's shown ripped out of the rock as it starts to plummet towards the Earth. He did end up losing the battle against the mutants, but his antics will leave a far-reaching impact, and the rhetoric around mutant hate will receive a fresh boost. How does Magneto save the world? With all the action and drama everywhere, attention had been diverted from Professor Xavier and Magneto for quite some time. They're both still trapped in Xavier's psychic world, but Magneto is slowly coming into his own with some help and reassurance from the Professor. There's a moment of brotherly bonhomie between the two after a brief emotional roller coaster. Magneto finally manages to overpower his fears and grief, and Professor Xavier is able to revive him. Meanwhile, Asteroid M is on the verge of crashing on Earth, and Beast's plan to stop the impact does not work. In the nick of time, Magneto is able to stop the descent of the asteroid, and the asteroid is vaporized along with the X-Men. What happens to the X-Men in the aftermath of saving humanity and the Earth? While the final episode of Season 1 of X-Men 97 gives us a closure for the immediate crisis, another seems to be brewing by the end of the episode. The X-Men have worked as a team and saved the day, averting a major disaster that could bring about extinction on Earth. However, they have all disappeared mysteriously after Magneto became the unlikely hero and helped them achieve victory. In the present timeline, Forge is mourning the presumed death of all the X-Men, especially his beloved Storm. It has been months and there has been no trace of the X-Men, all of whom are thought to be dead. Things change quickly with some new information that comes with the arrival of Bishop. The mutant from the future arrives before Forge and tells him that they must work together to track down and bring back the X-Men who are all stuck in different timelines. Forge is taken aback by the shocking discovery, but he should be more than willing to work at a chance to get back the love of his life. How is Apocalypse introduced in X-Men 97? The first group includes Rogue, Magneto, Nightcrawler, Professor Xavier, and Beast, as they find themselves stranded in ancient Egypt in 3000 BC. They come across a fellow mutant who seems to be tormented by a group of warriors. The X-Men fight off the attackers, and Professor Xavier uses his psychic powers to connect to the mutant to find out where they are. This is when we get the most shocking revelation of the episode. The mutant is none other than En-Shabanur, aka Apocalypse, one of the deadliest X-Men villains of all time. The expression of Beast sums it up nicely as he exclaims, "Oh dear," after learning about the mutant's identity. Of course, the X-Men are familiar with Apocalypse and his deadly nature, but it looks like this version of Apocalypse is yet to turn his evil ways. It is too far back in the timeline, and En-Shabanur probably still has a chance at redemption. Can the X-Men change his nature before he evolves into their mortal enemy, or will the timeline play out just like it's supposed to, and introduce En-Shabanur as Apocalypse eventually? The post-credits footage also shows Apocalypse in the present timeline as he visits the ruins of Genosha. Here, he comes across the card of Gambit, and his smile probably indicates how Gambit can be brought back as one of his horsemen of death. It's already known that Apocalypse will play a major role in Season 2, and we're just waiting to find out what his part will be like.
Are you okay?
We're not alone.
What is the timeline where Cyclops and Jean Grey are stuck? X-Men 97 doesn't stop at introducing Apocalypse in the climactic moments of the first season. It also throws Cyclops and Jean Grey in a strange futuristic world. They end up in 3960 AD in what appears to be an apocalyptic world, and they are immediately surrounded by armed men led by a woman who calls herself Mother Ascani. Just as there is tension in the air and we expect a violent confrontation, a young psychic named Nathan Summers appears and tells everyone that Cyclops and Jean Grey mean no harm. While this pacifies the situation, the couple is shocked to see their son, Nathan, in this timeline. The younger version of Cable in such a dystopian world needs more explanation, and we hope to get that at the earliest when Season 2 is released. It's also worth noting that Mother Ascani is Rachel Summers in the comic books, and she is the daughter of Cyclops and Jean Grey from an alternate timeline. She's present in the Days of Future Past narrative, and we expect to see more of this dystopian world in the upcoming season. X-Men the Animated Series already explored the storyline where Bishop attempts to save the world from a dangerous future, and given how Bishop has appeared to help out Forge in tracking down the X-Men, this might just be on the cards. Great and Creed looking to win over President Kelly in the elections may also be a subtle hint at what is about to come. And if you thought that the hard times are over for the X-Men, think again. President Kelly faces a strong opposition at the White House, and his actions in the finale might have just triggered another apocalyptic timeline for the mutants. Marvelous verdict. The perfect climax and ideal setup for Season 2. Given the grand success and wonderful response from the fans, a second season for X-Men 97 was always on the cards. And now, it has been finalized as well. Of course, this meant that Season 1 should have ended in such a manner that it paved the way for Season 2, and that is exactly what happened. The announcement of Apocalypse, the fate of the X-Men in different timelines hanging in a balance, and the curiosity around the future of Wolverine combined together to give the perfect kickoff for Season 2, and we sincerely hope that the quality of writing is the same as we witnessed over the course of these 10 episodes. Don't forget to tell us in the comments below about your thoughts on the jaw-dropping first season of X-Men 97, and also share your opinion regarding the direction that the story will be headed next. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks everyone!